I chose loneliness over death, and I think I made a mistake. The scar on my left palm is shaped like a splintered crescent moon. Some nights, when the silence in my apartment gets too loud, I trace its raised, white edges and wonder if I made the right choice. That night started the same as all the others in Hallowell Tower. It was just me and the low hum of the dorm's ancient radiator. The world outside my third-floor window should have been screaming a warning. The wind should have rattled the glass, the moon should have hidden its face. But it didn't. There was just the quiet and the loneliness, and I think that's what drew him to my door. I almost didn't answer the knock. I'd learned not to. The first time I did, weeks ago, it was for my roommate Javi. We'd shared the space in a state of polite, mutual ignorance for a month before he vanished. No note, no goodbye. I just came back from a lecture on modernist poetry, and his side of the room was stripped bare, leaving behind nothing but a faint indentation on the mattress. Other knocks followed. A girl from the student ministry with a baggie of dry brownies and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. A few guys from some fraternity, all of them smelling of the same stale beer and desperation. I wanted connection, sure, but not like that. High school had been a masterclass in being invisible, and I'd learned my lessons well. But tonight, the boredom was a physical weight on my chest. There are only so many hours you can lose to the blue light of a screen. I pushed my blanket off, my bare feet hitting the cold linoleum. As I passed the window, the sliver of moonlight breaking past the blackout curtain illuminated the dust motes dancing in the air. Outside, the rest of the campus was alive. I'd tried going out once, my first week here. The press of bodies and the wall of noise sent me spiraling back to my room, my heart hammering against my ribs. The next day, Javi and his friends asked if I was okay with a look that was more clinical than concerned. That was the day I started wishing he would disappear. The man standing in my doorway was a ghost I hadn't summoned. He wore a simple black shirt and worn jeans, things that should have made him look ordinary, but didn't. His dark, shoulder-length hair was a mess, and a faint stubble shattered his jaw, but it all looked intentional, like a carefully curated portrait of effortless confidence. He was everything I wasn't. He held out a hand. A silver ring on his index finger caught the harsh hallway light. The design was strange, a line that twisted and coiled like a vine, choking a fractured circle. My eyes fixed on it, mesmerized. Casimir? My own name sounded foreign. Yeah? My hand trembled as I took his. My body knew before my brain did. It was screaming at me. I told myself it was just the social anxiety my last therapist had been so fond of naming. Sylvan. His grip was firm and warm, an anchor. Can I come in? Please. The word escaped me, needy and pathetic. I hated myself for it. Sylvan moved into my room with an easy grace, as if he belonged there. This won't take long, he said, pulling out the stiff wooden chair from my desk. I sat on the one from Javi's side. Neither had been touched in weeks. I lived my entire life on my bed. He just watched me for a moment, his gaze steady and unnervingly perceptive. He had the eyes of someone panning for gold, and he'd just seen a glimmer in the silt. So, I started, just to fill the crushing silence. What is this about? The question, Casimir, is what we can do for you. The line was a cliché, something from a bad movie, but the way he said it felt like a diagnosis. We, Moon and Vine. He slipped the silver ring from his finger and held it out to me on his open palm. It was heavy, real. I turned it over. The fractured circle was a broken moon, half smooth silver, the other half roughly textured. The vine wasn't just wrapped around it. Its thorns were digging into the metal, breaking it apart. What is that? You haven't heard of us. You're not supposed to. A slow, knowing smile spread across his face. You know about the old societies? The ones at the Ivy League schools, buried in tradition? I've read about them. A half-truth. I'd spent more than a few lonely nights falling down rabbit holes of internet lore. Is that what you are? Of a sort. Moon and Vine is the oldest society in this valley. The only one left after the state decided to purge the fraternities and clubs a generation ago. We survived because we were never on the books. We stay in the shadows. He spoke with the authority of a historian, yet he couldn't have been older than 25. He fell silent again, just studying me. Okay, I said, my voice tight. Why are you telling me this? We've been watching you, Casimir. That's all I can say right now. If you want to know more, you'll have to come with me. He took the ring back, sliding it smoothly onto his finger. What do you say? And in that moment, I understood. This was it. This was the scene I had read about in 100 books, the ones that were my only friends in high school. This was the moment the outcast, the forgotten, the invisible boy is finally chosen, finally seen. A flicker of some long-forgotten public service announcement about stranger danger sparked in my brain, but Sylvan wasn't a stranger. He was an answer. He saw me. Even if every alarm bell in my gut was screaming, what did I have to lose? Okay, I said, my voice steadier than I expected. Show me. Sylvan led me down the echoing stairwell and through the empty lobby. As he pushed open the heavy front door, a gust of cold autumn air swept inside, rustling the papers on the community bulletin board. A flyer tore loose and skittered across the floor. It was a missing person notice for a grad student named Ilias V. In the photo, his wire-rimmed glasses and neat beard gave him the look of someone perpetually amused by a joke no one else got. He'd gone missing back in the spring. It was a campus tradition of sorts. Every year, someone just walked away from their life. The local sheriff had long since decided it was just what kids did. Hallowell Tower was built right against the main highway that cut through town. Usually, you could hear the whine of tires or the rumble of some local's pickup truck. But as Sylvan led me to the asphalt's edge, there was nothing. Just a profound, unnatural silence. I reached for my phone to check the time, but my pocket was empty. I'd left it on my nightstand. Ready? Sylvan's voice was almost lost in the sudden breeze. Before I could answer, he broke into a light jog, straight across the 4 empty lanes of traffic toward the dense wall of black trees on the other side. I'd never jaywalked in my life, but I followed him. By the time I scrambled across the highway, he had already vanished into the undergrowth. I could hear the faint crackle of his movements. I glanced up and down the road. Nothing. I plunged into the darkness. The thicket was brief. One moment I was pushing through scratching branches. The next, I was standing in a perfectly circular clearing. The canopy of the forest opened up directly above, and the moon, which had been a sliver from my window, now looked huge and full and impossibly bright. In the center of the clearing stood the ruin of a house. With its skeletal frame and twin gables like skeletal shoulders hunched against the sky, it looked like it had been ripped out of some gothic New England horror story and dropped into the middle of nowhere. It seemed ready to collapse, yet it held an aura of immense, ancient importance. Coming? Sylvan's voice drifted from the gaping, doorless maw of the entrance. I hurried forward, a tremor in my own voice as I answered. Right behind you. The only light inside was the same intense moonlight, but it wasn't coming through windows. There were no windows. It was seeping through the 1,000 cracks in the rotting wood, casting a web of pale light across the floor. I stepped into what must have been a grand foyer and nearly stumbled on the shattered remains of a chandelier, its brass arms bent and tarnished. The air was thick with the smell of dust and decay, and something else beneath it. Something coppery and sharp. Shadows lined the walls. As my eyes adjusted, I realized they were figures, cloaked in black, their faces lost in the hoods. They were utterly still, watching me. I took a step toward the nearest one, but Sylvan's voice called out again, sharper this time. Down here, don't keep us waiting. He was growing impatient. My mother used to say I had that effect on people. I scanned the darkness and saw it. 2 spiral staircases, mirror images of each other, one snaking up into the gloom, the other descending into the black. Between them stood a single section of wall that looked newer, stronger than the rest of the ruin. It was smooth and dark, made of solid stone, untouched by the decay that had claimed everything else. At the base of the stone was an empty fireplace, choked with debris. But the column was built for the portrait that hung above it. It was painted in an old colonial style. The man depicted was immense, his round belly straining the buttons of his waistcoat, his spindly legs looking wholly unequal to the task of supporting him. A long, sharp nose and beady eyes were nearly lost in the pale puff of his face. On any other night, I might have laughed. But here, bathed in the spectral moonlight, he commanded a terrifying reverence. A small, gleaming plaque at the bottom of the frame read, "The First Gardener." I could have stared at him all night, but I couldn't make Sylvan wait. I had to prove I belonged. I rushed to the left staircase and descended into the earth. The metallic smell was stronger down here. The ground beneath my feet was soft, loose dirt. I was in a vast cellar, its walls made of rough, poured concrete. And the robed figures were here too, lining this room as they had the one above, all of them silent, waiting. In the flickering glow of a row of candles set along the far wall, I could see their faces. They were all young men, my age. At the center of the candlelight stood Sylvan. Took you long enough. The last of his charm had evaporated, leaving something cold and hard. Sorry, sir. I was looking at the portrait. The word sir felt like a betrayal of myself, but it felt right. He didn't correct me. He has that effect. A lot to take in. You're forgiven. This time. His laugh was a dry, ugly sound that the concrete walls threw back at me. I tried to laugh with him, but it came out as a strangled cough. I started walking toward him, my eyes fixed on his face in the candlelight. My foot caught on something in the dirt, and I pitched forward, catching myself with my hands. I looked down. It was a mound. A neatly piled ridge of dirt, about 6 inches high and 6 feet long. As my eyes swept the floor, I saw that the entire cellar was covered in them, arranged in a meticulous grid. Thank you, sir, I mumbled, getting to my feet and brushing the damp soil from my jeans. This was just part of it. A test. A little ritual to earn my place. When I finally reached Sylvan, I saw the wall behind him. It was covered in names, hundreds of them, all signed in a glistening, dark red. At the very center, in an elegant, spidery script, was the name of the first gardener. Welcome, Casimir, to the root cellar. Sylvan's voice was soft, almost hypnotic. Every great society is built on a strong foundation. He gestured to the wall. You can sign right here, next to me. He tapped a spot beside his own name, written in stark crimson block letters. Then he handed me a blade. It wasn't a knife. It was a shard of black, volcanic glass, its edges napped to a wicked point. Its cold weight settled in my hand. He didn't need to say another word. I knew what I had to do. My signature, written in my own blood, would be my pledge, my entry fee. I wrapped my fingers around the smooth, cool obsidian and took a deep, shuddering breath. I turned my head away, looking to the far end of the wall, not wanting to see the cut. And that's when I saw the names Sylvan's body had been blocking. Near the bottom, freshly written in a red that was still bright and wet, was the name Ilias V. A sound like a thunderclap went off inside my head. My lungs seized. The obsidian shard slipped from my numb fingers. It fell, its point slicing open the palm of my other hand as I instinctively tried to catch it. I didn't feel the pain. I was already turning to run when I tripped over another of the long, narrow mounds. I scrambled away, crab walking backward until my back hit one of the silent, robed figures. Adrenaline flooded my veins and I braced for a blow, for hands to grab me, but the figure didn't move. As I pushed off it, the hood fell back. It was a mannequin, its face smooth and lifeless plastic. Perched on its nose were the wire-rimmed glasses from the missing person poster. My memory of what came next is a slideshow of broken images. The dirt floor rushing past. The spiral stairs spinning before my eyes. The face of the first gardener, his painted eyes filled with a smug, knowing satisfaction. The last thing I remember clearly is seeing Sylvan in the doorway of that ruined house as I burst back into the moonlight. He wasn't chasing me. He wasn't angry. He was smiling. A wide, genuine, delighted smile. I only know the rest from the sheriff's incident report. Deputy Warnick wrote that he nearly hit a male, late teens, running erratically in the middle of the highway. He noted the subject appeared intoxicated but passed a field sobriety test. He wrote, subject kept repeating, In the dirt, under the house. They're the foundation. Subject then collapsed. The story blew up for a while. Local, then national. College death cult uncovered. They found 25 bodies buried in the neat rows in that cellar. The internet went crazy over the photos of the bloody wall, but in all the articles, in all the news reports, no one ever mentioned Moon and Vine, and no one ever mentioned a man named Sylvan. It's been months. They've identified all the bodies. The families have come and gone, collecting the personal effects that had been so carefully arranged on the mannequins. The old house burned to the ground a week after the bodies were found. An unsolved arson. I'm alive. I survived. I should be grateful. And most of the time, I am. But then there are the nights. The long, silent nights where the quiet of my new, off-campus apartment feels like a tomb. Those nights, a part of me hates myself for being a coward. The scar on my hand throbs, a permanent reminder of how close I came. And I think about those boys, sleeping in the dirt. Even in their graves, they were part of something. They weren't alone.